Okay, bankruptcy to business owner. So, this is what we're talking about today, how you can go from the depths of despair to rock bottom to being bankrupt before the age of 30 and turning your life around through the power of art and creativity to build a multi-million pound business around teaching paint parties of all things. This is what we are talking about in today's episode of the Europe Matters podcast. So today's guest turned her paintbrush into a paycheck. As the founder of Paint Party Headquarters, she helps women say yes to their creativity, confidence, and their income. So, if you've ever wondered if your little hobby could pay the bills, Heidi is here with us today to prove that you can and cheer you on every step of the way. Hi, Heidi.
Good to see you. I've never heard your accent say the bankruptcy, so it felt so doomed for a second. I was like, I kind of like it. Sounded like a movie trailer coming in. It was cool.
I love it. We also have to add here, you are an author as well, Heidi, aren't you?
Yes, I wrote a book last year, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
been really, really cool. So,
What's your book?
do what?
What's your book title?
It's called Your Dreams Don't Die, They Haunt You.
Yeah,
And
good.
we have it. You don't even have to buy it on Amazon. You can go to my YouTube channel and get it for free. And
Yeah.
I actually read it to you. So if you don't want to read it yourself, I'll read it to you. But it kind of is made for the underdog who's trying to make something happen, but they keep getting knocked down.
Yeah. So Heidi's here with us today to talk about her journey, but also inspire you in ways that you can use your art to make extra income and actually have incredible fun, which is what I love about Heidi's business. So Heidi, talk to us first of all and set the scene. We want to know and get a picture of the life that you live today. And then we're going to go back to the depths of where you came from and how you got to where you are. But tell us, what's life like for you right now? What's your business? What are you doing day in, day out?
Oh my gosh. So we actually moved from Texas to Nashville area. And so me and my husband are starting a lavender farm. We have chickens. We're going to get a Highland cow soon. Just loving life. So I have this new art studio that I'm obsessed with. And and still teaching paint parties to this day. I still teach paint parties. I'm restarting my local paint party business in a new area in Nashville. And then, of course, I teach people online how to do a paint party business. So it's been crazy. We have guineas, we have chickens, we have a cat now outside. It's been nuts. We have animals everywhere. It's so fun.
And so you are known for helping people deliver and host their own paint parties, and you do your own paint parties. So we're going to unpack that in a minute in terms of what that actually means and what a paint party is. And for those who are signed up for the Teach Your Art Summit, Heidi's got the most amazing demo, teaching a palm tree demo. It's just brilliant, talking more about paint parties too. But so tell us, let's get into so right now you're still making art. It's changed your life in the most profound way, financially, and also I would imagine your whole family's life and you as a person.
Yeah, it's changed everything. So years ago, we talked about the bankruptcy. Before the age of 30, we lost everything. I was kind of stuck in this kind of depression and didn't know how to get out of it. So I used art to heal. Let me know if you have ever painted when you were down and out. Yeah, definitely use art to heal. And so I started painting these little wooden surfboards I'd cut out at my sister's house. And again, like I said, we had lost our house, we lost our cars, we lost everything. And so I had this toddler. My daughter's 19 now, but at the time she was around 2 years old. And I was just painting to heal. I was an art teacher, and I went into the school. And at that time, I was making $21,000 a year teaching, which is very, very, very low. And so I was, painting these surfboards during lunch breaks, and kids would see them. And they would go, Miss Easley, paint me a surfboard. And I'm like, no, I'm healing. I'm trying to just, create to heal. And they just kept saying it. And so after about the 150th time, a kid said, Miss Easley, put my name on a surfboard. a light bulb went off and I thought, oh my gosh, like I may be able to sell surfboards to make some money for my family. And so we ended up, I talked my mother-in-law into helping me because we had no money. We couldn't do anything. So I said, she said, this sounds like a great idea. Let's see if we can sell these surfboards. We'll go on 50-50. We'll front the cost and then we'll split it 50-50 after we pay our expenses. So we went to this place in Pier Park, which is in Panama City Beach, Florida. And it's this beautiful outdoor mall. And we talked the guy into letting us set up like a 10 by 10 foot table. And so I could sell my surfboard. So I'm like so excited. I'm thinking, plan B, like it's all going to be okay. Like life is fine. Like I have this new, lease on life and it's all going to be good. And then Michelle, literally nobody buys anything. Like I'm just like, what the heck? Like this sucks. Like I don't know what to do. And what do you do when you've lost everything? You don't know what to do. You filed bankruptcy before the age of 30. You go to Buffalo Wild Wings, which is a bar, and you have a drink. That's what I did. And so I walk across the street. I leave the booth with my husband, and I walk across the street, and I'm having a drink, and I'm like, what is going to happen? I'm nervous about my daughter's future. I'm nervous about our future. This is not what life was supposed to be. Like life sucks. Life is hard. Like that's all I could think. And then another drink in and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like this is what's supposed to get us out of this. And then my husband calls and literally everything changes. He calls and he says, Heidi, get over here. We have orders. And I'm like, you're not. And he's like, no, get over here. We have orders. And so I look at my mother-in-law and I'm like, I gotta, my eyes are wide. She's like, go. And so she pays the bill and I tipsily walk across the street to my booth because I've been drinking. And I look at my husband and in this moment, it was crazy, Michelle. Like he's holding these tickets and he's like, it's just a stack of orders. And he's like, get to painting. And in that moment, like I was flat on my face, done for, like count me out. And it felt like God had scooped his arms around me and said, not only is it going to be okay, but you're going to be able to do what you love forever, which is paint. And so we went on to sell over 1,000 hand-painted surfboards in just 2 months, which meant this girl who could barely finish one painting in a year. I was like the world's slowest painter. I had to learn to paint fast. I had to learn to, because every single surfboard was a chance at my family's financial future. So yeah, we sold over 1,000 hand-painted surfboards in just 2 months, gaining my family over 20 grand in just a couple months. And it changed my life forever. So,
oh my gosh. Well, you must not have been able to believe it because if that's your salary, that was your year's salary in just a month. Where were the sales coming from?
So everybody's on the beach during the day, and then at night they come in and they order, and they were going out to eat. So we were just getting left and right orders. Around 6 p.m. orders started until midnight every night.
And that must have been so brave of you to take that step. So I just want to kind of dig into that actually a little bit more, if you don't mind. Just that place that you were in as a teacher, and was it an art teacher you were, Heidi? Yeah.
Yes.
So you're an art teacher. You must have loved what you did, but it's always a struggle. It's exhausting working with kids. And then, so that I just want to talk about that piece in the middle there where you took that jump to be on that stand that day, because I would imagine there was lots of mindset shifts going on and imposter syndrome, I don't want to put ideas or words in your mouth. What was going on in that transition point? Did it feel exciting? Did it feel scary?
Yeah. So I remember it was like the day before we set up or something. And I remember like going to try to eat a meal and I couldn't even eat. I was about to throw up. I was so nervous. I felt like everything was on the line. I think now that I'm in my mid 40s, it's like I see life so different. I can see the whole reason for that. That's why I can smile as I talk about bankruptcy, because I know all that pain, all of that stuff I went through is what's made me who I am today, to where I can handle what's coming at me now. But man, like back then, I didn't realize we got second chances. I didn't realize we got third chances. I didn't realize we got 500 chances. Like that wasn't the way my brain was wired at that time. I thought, okay, you fail and you're done. Now my mindset is like, the faster I fail, the faster I get up. Like fail fast so I can now get to the part where I can win. And so now it's just a totally different way of looking at life. Like I feel like, okay, I got to fail, 9 times before I have the one win. So let's just get to those failures as fast as possible. And where before I thought, oh, you fail, you're done, and it's just a totally different way I look at life now.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there because I, in the past, have, hit rock bottom a few times or things haven't gone the way I've wanted them to. And I've just written it off as like, oh, that's it, I'm done. Like, yeah. And that's really interesting. It's a really interesting concept to just know that no, there's more. You've got other chances. I love
Yeah,
that.
we gotta keep getting back up. Like it's not gonna stop. We're here, so might as well do something cool while we're here.
Yeah, because Thea's saying 1,000 surfboards in 2 months. Like, what? But I
It
would
was insane,
imagine.
y'all. I remember it would be raining and I would have to like go to my car, my friend's car, and literally paint in the car. Or I would stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning finishing orders for the next day. Like it was madness, but it
Yeah.
was so cool. So worth
But
it.
you must have loved it because when you're facing bankruptcy and nothing, and you have no clue how you're going to get yourself out of that, to then all of a sudden have a lifeline, it's almost like you've been given that, isn't it? And then you're like, you'll just do whatever it takes to make it happen, I would imagine. And
Yeah. And I think too, like growing up and not having a lot, it's like, I mean, we always felt like we had everything, but we
mm,
definitely weren't, people who had a lot of money.
yeah,
And it's like now knowing, having my daughter and knowing like I want a certain future for her, it's almost like it gave me that fight to be like, no, this isn't everything we can have. There can be more. And so I think, especially as creatives and artists, a lot of times we have that starving artist mentality and it's just kind of beat down in us.
mm,
And that's where I'm like, no, we're creative. Like we can always pivot. There are always really cool things we can do and offer. And that's why I love
yeah,
teaching parties.
yeah. And so you sold all those surfboards. What happened next after you sold those surfboards? Because I would imagine you had orders coming in, and then what was life getting like?
So we needed a much needed new, like move back to Texas where we were from and to be around family and just kind of regroup. My year salary, I wouldn't make what I had made starting in Texas for like 20 years. And so I moved to Texas, got a huge raise right off the bat. And then, of course, in North Texas at that time, I wasn't doing anything online. It was a little hard to sell surfboards in North Texas. There wasn't an ocean around. There wasn't anything around. So I started teaching paint parties. And paint parties, I'd already started kind of teaching them in Florida. But at this time, they were really starting to get big and they're still like massively. I know they're starting to have some members in the UK. So I know they're starting to spread all over the world, which makes my heart so, so happy.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's really cool. So I started teaching paint parties on the side. So I was teaching full time. I had 850 students every week coming in like a catalog.
Wow.
It was insane. I was exhausted, but then I started teaching paint parties at night and it just kind of took over my life.
Can we just pause that? We need to rewind 1 second. 850 people. So
Oh,
talk us through this process, how that began for you and how it got to 850 people.
well, 850 were my students. So
Yeah.
850 people I was teaching every week. And that's just school systems in America, like the art
Oh, I get you. Okay. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
art
yeah,
teachers, they just every 45 minutes we have another like
yeah,
30 kids. And so it's really
yeah,
fast paced. And so I think when the transition for me to go from teaching that many people to now teaching paint parties from 10 people to 500
yeah.
was pretty easy because I was so used to such a fast paced life.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, okay. So you were in that teaching system, churning, through students after students, and then you transitioned into the paint parties. And so did you start the paint parties? What gave you the idea for the paint parties? I just wondered where that all began for you.
Oh my gosh. So back in Florida. So back in 2007 was around the time when Painting with a Twist, which is a very famous franchise in the US, and they started popping up these franchises everywhere. And so there was this it was similar. It wasn't the franchise, but there was one that was in our area in Florida. And my mother-in-law, who's a big part of my story and the success and all of that, she's also one of my best friends. So she's a
Oh.
lot. She's a lot in this story. And she invited me to come to this paint party. And so I was like, okay, I'll come. And so here I was painting. Again, toddler. This was, before the surfboards. I'm here painting, and the lady says, "Oh my gosh, you're doing such a great job." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm an art teacher." And she goes, "Well, we need instructors. I can pay you $50 for 2 hours." That was like, yes, please. Like, I remember literally tearing up, going, somebody's going to pay me $50 to paint for 2 hours. And I remember just being like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And so anyway, so I worked for her for a little bit, like part-time. And then their business went out because her and her husband were not artists. So they were depending on people like me to come in and run their business. Well, what happened was they couldn't do it anymore. So they basically said, hey, we're closing down. However, we have this private party that you can take. It's already booked. You can have all the profit for it. And it was a $400 profit. So I could take off my day job and go work that party. And I remember just being like, I just literally painted on kids' feet and had them stamp on a canvas and made $400. Like, this is way better money than what I'm making teaching. And so I just started like adding those in. And then when I moved to Texas, I started doing it more and more.
Isn't it I love hearing the stories of how people get into things, because it's always like a happenstance or a moment that you just wasn't looking for it. It found you, and I love how the dots add up and how your mother-in-law is such an important part of that. And I think when I look back, there's always someone in your life or that's introduced you, or I always say to people, you never know. You can always be like one opportunity or one person away from something that's just going to change your life. And it sounds like that moment is the catalyst for then what came so much later on. Isn't it so interesting? Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
fun. I love looking back at the timeline because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my, I can see how God was working and kind of
Yeah.
preparing for all these future things too. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's amazing. And so you start to do the paint parties. And so at this point, have you given up your teaching job? No, you
No.
still was going with the teaching. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in like, don't quit your day job until your side hustle is paying you well.
Yeah.
And because of the bankruptcy, I'm very like I would still teach, and then the paint parties would get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then my teaching salary was like now the side hustle, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm a big person. I'll never just be like, oh, quit everything and go full force business. Like, I'm always like, no, dip your toes in, build it up,
Yeah.
and then when you'll know that safety net of when you can switch over.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't even quit the full time. I went to part time teaching, and
Yeah.
then I remember I was literally like just going crazy teaching these paint parties. And it came a time where I was going to make the decision, okay, I'm not going back to teaching. And I remember the summer that this happened because we had a family reunion, and one of my cousins said, so you're going to just quit your job and start teaching like paint parties full time? And I was like, he's like, is that going to work out? And I was like, I don't know. We'll see. You know, it was like, he just kind of like questioned it. And I was like, I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
And but then we went on to just, more and more. We still to this day teach them. And I'm so glad I made the choice. But there's so many people that doubted and still to this day have no idea what I do. They're just like, what is she doing? I don't even
Yeah.
know what she's doing, and I'm like, they don't need to understand. That's one of the quotes that somebody said, like, their understanding is not required for your permission to do what you want to do. And I just kind of keep that in my head. Like, just because they don't understand it doesn't mean I don't do what I know I need to do. So kind of gives you a chance.
Yeah. And actually, I want to talk about that while we're on that topic, because let's talk more now about the paint parties and how other people can do this too. Because I've spoken to a lot of people recently as we get closer to the Teacher Arts Summit who say, I just have never gone down that road of after school clubs or paint parties because I just don't think there's any money in it, or I don't think that I could make it happen in my area and all those things. And you must hear this day in, day out, having been in this world now for how many years have you been teaching the paint parties, Heidi? How long has it been?
Almost 20 years.
Wow, that's incredible. And so let's talk about this bit now of so at what point did you went part-time, and I just want to talk about the mindset bit again of that moment when you did decide to quit, and what was it that gave you that confidence? I know you said it was making up the income from the paint parties, but was there anything else that you internalized or anything that you did to kind of make that leap? Because it must have been terrifying.
Oh my gosh, it was so terrifying. And I have a story I want to share with everyone as well. But I remember just that feeling of, okay, the income is definitely higher. And then at that time, I had started teaching my online stuff. So people, like, when you start doing something and then people start noticing, of course, they're like, wait a minute, and they're counting 100 people times 35. And they're like, you made how much in one night? Like, it was crazy money, like crazy money. And I'd be like, yeah. I mean, there were some weeks still to this day, like I'll make $12,000 in 3 weeks just teaching paint parties, back to back.
Yeah.
And people would just be like, that's crazy. So I started teaching people online how to teach paint parties. And so it got to where I had an income online and I had my paint party income. So then I finally felt like, okay, this is part-time teaching. I was finally able to kind of switch it over. So now, instead of teaching in a public school or a private school setting, now I was doing online paint party business and my in-person paint party business, which is what I still do today.
Yeah.
However, there was a moment whenever I just thought everything was too hard. So we have nearly 3,000 members inside of Paint Party headquarters, but years ago, I know, so proud.
Can we just give it up, Heidi, for a minute? Because that's an amazing achievement. Yeah.
So just over 7 years old. But about a year in, I remember I had 120 members. And my husband, I was in the office and I was like tears coming down my face, and I was applying for a middle school art job. Now, if you know anything about teaching, middle school teachers are a gift from God. I hate teaching middle school art. That is like the bottom of the barrel for me. That is like the first, like, it's the awkward moments of all the kids. And I just don't like teaching that age. But that was the job that was open. And so I'm sitting there and I'm applying for this job, and my husband walks in and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's just too hard. I got to go get a normal job. Like, I can't do it. And so he's like, step away from the computer. And so I step away, and he's like, we need to look at this. And so we literally tracked every single penny we spent for the next 3 months. And by doing that, by tracking it every time I went and got a coffee, every time I went to the grocery store, every time I paid a bill, and we tracked it. And then we saw that literally I was bringing in $7,500 through my business. Now, if I go back to teaching, it would have dropped our family's income in half. And so once I saw those numbers, like black and white, I was like, game on. I was like, never again. Like, that is something that I've done, but it's in the past. And there's something, Michelle, that switched in my brain that said, oh my gosh, I'm going to do my family a disservice if I don't move forward with this. So that's really what turned it.
Yeah, I love that story because I have been in that situation where things get difficult and I've gone straight to Indeed, which is the job app site in the UK, and I'm looking for local jobs. And I actually did something very similar to you. I was like, oh, that's not a bad salary. And then I realized all the perks and all the amazingness that comes from my job, like the travel, the masterminds that we're in, like the podcasting, hanging out on a Tuesday, just hanging out talking about art. I was like, all that would go because I'd be like slogging at my job. And so this is incredible that you have built this life for yourself and for your family. But also, what I absolutely adore is this mission for you to share this with others. And that's why I was so excited to bring you in as a guest in the summit and to bring you on today, because there are still so many people in the world who are lost, who are in jobs that they just really hate and don't even know what's possible and what's out there. And to bring this conversation to you all in a way that to open your eyes to you, this is possible. In fact, there was a comment from Samed saying, are paint parties something that's more suited to women, do you think, Heidi?
Yeah. So in America, you can do paint parties for date nights, couples, things like that. However, I have the most success with women's events. I've taught every age, kids parties, all the way up to 98 years old. But my like bread and butter are women's parties, church events, and ladies' night out. That's where I can make a ton of money.
Yeah.
However, our members, we have people that are they only do kids parties. We have some people that only do after school parties. We have some that only do couples parties or kids camp. So everybody kind of finds what they love the best and really, really hones in on that.
And I would imagine that they make really just great social events. So in your area, I mean, I know where I am right now in Shropshire, it's very rural and there isn't much of an art scene. And there are like independent cafes and stuff, but there's nothing that kind of brings people together en masse, especially in a creative way. And so I think if you live in an area like that, you'd be surprised at mixing it up and inviting people in from all different backgrounds to paint. So talk to us about the paint parties, because a lot of people here might not actually know what that means. And so talk to us about how you host one. And Heidi is going to do a demo, and it's an amazing demo. And by the end of it, I was like, right, I'm signing up. I want to do a paint party. I was like so hooked after I watched Heidi's demo. So you have to tune in when we host the summit. But talk to us, Heidi, about the process of like, how do you host a party?
Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 easy steps so that you can make it simple. But first, I want to show you just an example. Again, there are so many types of paintings. So this is just like examples of just, some of the paintings that I teach at my paint parties. As well as it doesn't just have to be canvas. So we do everything from glass art to ceramics to painting hats. Like we have, things stenciled on here. So we do all kinds of stuff, right? So it doesn't have to just be a painting. It could be hat parties. It could be, crafting parties. It could be whatever. So again, we say paint parties because people immediately, and there's one of our cows that we have. That's going to be one of the really cool things we're teaching this fall. But here's the thing. Here's the 3 things I want you to do. So number 1, if you are crafty, okay, you do not have to be the best painter. I always say, I know I'm not the best painter. I'm usually not even the best painter at my paint parties. Usually there's always an artist in the mix that goes to town. Like it's totally fine. You do not have to be the best painter. So number 1, if you are crafty or you're like, oh my gosh, this looks fun, then you're good to go. Okay. That's what you need. You need that spirit of wanting to do that. And then what I like for you to do is, okay, number 1, are you crafty or kind of interested in this? If you say yes, then we're going to step 2. Step 2, I want you to literally like watch that tutorial that I'm going to give you and paint it with me. It is so simple. It is literally just painting a palm tree. You don't need a tracer. You don't have to be an artist. None of that matters. Okay. That's your step 2. You're going to paint that palm tree. And then your step 3, I used to tell people like, go ahead and use Magic Script, which is a way that we get bookings. However, I realized that not everybody's ready for that step. So if you're like, I just want to dip my toe in, I just want to see what this is like. After you paint the palm tree, all I want you to do in step 3 is invite a friend over or your kid or your grandkid or your husband or your spouse or whoever and teach them to paint that painting while you have some great music on, while you have a glass of wine or a Coke or whatever, and just paint that painting with somebody at your dining room table. Nobody's paying, nobody's charging. You're just feeling what it feels like to do it. So that's my go-tos.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And that just takes all the pressure away, doesn't it? Because you can just simply just bring people around and get used to talking through the process. Yes. So, what do you paint? Yeah, yeah. So there's, well, we can see in the background, there's lots of different things you've painted, kind of, yeah,
Yes,
with
so many.
animals and all sorts. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And of course, like our big seasons are like Christmas and, fall. Like you can make literally tens of thousands of dollars during fall season and Christmas. That's when it's like our go season. And
Yeah.
people make money all year round doing paint parties, but like the easiest and the fastest way to cash is your September, October, November, December doing pumpkins. I remember last year somebody posting in our group and they said, I'm just so sick and tired of painting pumpkins. And I was like, I'll paint pumpkins forever. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm getting paid thousands of dollars to teach you to paint a pumpkin. Like, who cares? Like, I'll go paint something I want on my own time. But to make
Yeah.
the money, like, I'll keep, because you literally can take the same paintings and just paint them at different breweries or wineries or pubs or whatever. So it's
Yeah.
really a fun way. And I want people to hear this, especially if you're in the UK listening or you're in another part of the world. Even the US, I still have to tell people this in the US. A paint party is different than a paint workshop. Okay. A paint workshop is like you're trying to teach them so that they can be a better artist, right? You're trying to give them tips on, okay, here's how you shade exactly right. Here's how you make this line look like it has the right perspective. That is not what we're doing. Okay. I was an art teacher for 10 years. I know the difference. The paint party, think of the party word. Okay. You are creating a party. This is something that people are just literally, they're filling in. The etches are already there. All they're doing is filling this in. And you want it so simple that a beginner can walk away with a finished piece they're proud of. And you also want it so simple that they can talk and laugh and have fun because it's a social gathering.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's up for that? Yeah.
It's so fun.
I'd love to know, Heidi, are there, during your journey and sitting now and reflecting back on it, do you think there has been some pivotal mindset shifts or things that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with others or just bring to the surface to go, yeah, I'm so glad I did that or took that action or thought that way?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So in my mid 30s, my husband, we moved into this new place we were renting. And this was after the bankruptcy. This was all of that. And my husband said, we're not going to put a TV in the bedroom, which we do have a TV in the bedroom now. But in the past, he's like, no, I want us to read. And I was like, read? Like, I'd never been a reader ever. And now I have a book, which is crazy. But like in the past, I was never a reader. And so he's like, no, I think, I used to do this when I was younger. Like, let's just read at night. And I was like, okay. And so I remember starting to get into books. And this is when I went from having that mindset of feeling like a victim to taking ownership of my life. So for many years, no matter what was going on, I still always had that like inside going, well, people didn't have it as bad as me, or I had a rough childhood, or I had this, or we didn't have that, or whatever it may be, right? Like we tell ourselves these stories. Then as I started reading books that, the self-help books, the stuff that really starts to look and make you accountable, I started really putting accountability on myself and going, okay, if, I'm in my mid 30s, if I want a certain future, stop living in the past. And so I literally threw away all my journals from my earlier years because everything was so negative. Everything was, and I know, journaling's for certain things. Now I journal, but I journal about gratitude and I write letters to God about thank you for this. In the past, everything was negative. Every single thing, everything that my mind went through was through a negative lens. And so as I started reading, one of the things that I read was this book called Big Magic. Now, there is this quote that has changed my life, and I literally have it on my computer. If you don't mind, Michelle, I would love to share it because it
Yeah,
changed
please
my
do.
life. And I literally read it pretty much every week. But this quote was so important. And I'm going to read it to you, and then I'll tell you why it was so important to me. It says, we spend our 20s and 30s trying so hard to be perfect because we're worried about what people will think of us. Then when we get into our 40s and 50s and we finally start to be free because we decide that we don't give a damn what anyone thinks of us. But you won't be completely free until you reach your 60s and 70s, when you finally realize this liberating truth. Nobody was ever thinking about you anyhow. So the reason this quote hit me so much is I thought, if that's how I'm going to feel in my 60s and 70s, why don't I adopt that mentality in my mid 30s and do what I want to do anyway? Because nobody's really thinking about us anyhow. When we fail, when we do these crazy things and we think everybody's looking at us. I used to struggle from so much anxiety. I would go to the grocery store and think everybody is staring at me. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, I am not the star of their show. They are the star of their own show. And so as I started to adopt that mentality, I started realizing, like, I don't care if people see me fail. I don't care if people talk crap about me. Like, you can say whatever you want. Like, I don't care. And I think having that and adopting that mentality has set me free on so many things that I could go, you know what? I want to try this. And yes, I may fail spectacularly in front of all of you, but I don't care that much, right? Like, but I don't want to live with regret. I don't want to be 95 years old and go, why didn't I try that paint party business? Why didn't I try that lavender farm that I've killed half the plants, but it's going to work? Right? Why don't we try these things? That's so important that we, and that's why it's on my computer. When I start to feel like people are, I'm feeling like people are looking, I just read that and I go, I don't care. I don't care. So adopt the mentality of a 60 or 70-year-old.
I love that. Yes. There's a couple of questions specific to paint parties, so I'm just going to drop those in. A couple of people are asking, how much do you charge for your paint parties, per person?
So in America, and again, it kind of varies depending on where you're at in the area, but usually like a canvas, I usually do an 11 by 17 canvas. This is a bigger one, but this is a sample. But I'll do an 11 by 17 for $35 a person. And then for hats, because the hats do cost more, I'll do these for $85 a person. So this includes the hat, but again, you have to look at your expenses. Sometimes I'll do kids parties for 20 a person or 25 a person, depending on what it is. So kids parties are usually less, and then adult parties usually run about 35 to 40.
Mm-hmm. And then Samad was asking earlier about whether it works better for men, and he was actually referring to teaching. So I think rather than participants, but I think it doesn't matter. I think you can, it just depends on what you want to do and your creativity. And I don't really think it matters. Do you, Heidi?
The main thing is the way you treat people. So people are not going to remember what you taught them, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. So I always try to tell my teachers this, is that you have to make people feel seen. Again, when I first started this, I thought I had to be like, here's me, I'm this beautiful artist. Like, yes, trying to prove myself that, yes, I can, paint Starry Night and also teach you Starry Night. And then as I'm sitting there nervous, staring at my canvas, trying to make sure I'm getting it all right, I look around and nobody is looking at me. They're all staring at their canvas. And I thought, oh my gosh, they just need me to make sure they're okay. And so now I usually don't paint my paintings at all. I usually tell the first step, and then I walk around and I talk and I help people. And that's one of the biggest things that you can do. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. Like, if you're walking around and helping people and making sure they feel seen, that's where you're going to get repeat customers. They don't keep coming back because they need another floral arrangement, or, they come back because it's the experience. You have great music playing. You're making it fun. It's about a social, where you're getting together socially every month or every quarter and seeing your friends and painting something fun. So you got to look at it a different way.
And hands up, we need more of this in the world, don't we? Especially in today's world right now, it's like we need that connection. We need to be regrouping. We need creativity. We need to be hanging out with each other, laughing, connecting, supporting each other, and just having that downtime of just being free and being in that room. I would imagine is just liberating because everyone's just doing their thing. And I wonder, like at the end, it must be so fun for everyone to just share their creations and see how different you're all painting the same thing. But when we've done challenges where we've given an image and people adopt it in their own way, it's like amazing to see all these paintings that are the same, but you'll see subtle differences in everybody's because their own personalities come through in some way.
Yes. So I'm going to show you a picture. It's going to be a little bit hard to see because they have
Oh,
ceramics, but this is a picture of everyone holding up ceramics. And so it's like everybody has a little bit of a different feel, but it also is so fun because again, you're rocking music, you're talking, and it's kind of like, I don't know if you've experienced this, Michelle, but like when I want to have a hard conversation with my daughter, like I won't sit across the table from her. I'll like go on a drive or go on a walk. And then it's like less intimidating. I think that happens in a paint party too. Like when everybody's focused on their painting, sometimes you can just talk. Sometimes you can just connect. And I think like you said, the world needs more of that. People a lot of times will come to a paint party alone, but then they leave with friends and then they meet every month and come back. And that's what's really cool is like it gives people an escape. I once had a lady who had just found out she had cancer. And at the end of the party, I didn't know that, but at the end of the party, she told me, she said, this is I had a 2-hour break from thinking about my cancer diagnosis. And I thought like, this is more powerful than just a paint party. This is more powerful than just making money.
Yeah, it is. Our podcast, as you know, is called Your Art Matters. Can you share with us, Heidi, why you think art matters? And I know that I just wanted to bring that in because you're on the topic anyway. Why does art matter to you?
Oh my gosh. Art's changed my life. When I was 15, I remember I was bored. And one day I asked my mom, I said, hey, can I paint a mural on my wall? And she was like, yeah, sure, like nonchalant. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, go for it. And so that started just this grand adventure of painting on walls, on floors, on dressers, like pretty much anything you could paint on. I painted. And I remember one of my very first murals was Simba from The Lion King. Oh, speaking of Simba, I didn't even know I was going to bring him up. I'm obsessed with Lion King. And so I painted this giant Simba, and he was like the wrong color. I spent a year trying to mix those colors, make him right. I painted him 3 times over, and just this giant out of perspective Simba. But it just opened up my world. I also remember when I was in elementary school, I, had buck teeth. I was a nerd. I had, one friend, and get this, she wasn't really a friend. She punched me on the playground. Like that's the only friend I had. And I remember my art teacher said, Heidi, if you want to come in, they allowed some of the students to come in during lunch break and after school to work on these giant paper mache dinosaurs. And I was just like, what is this? Like, what is this creative, magical art room where I can go in and not only be, in the zone and creating whatever I want, but like having this place to escape. And it was almost like, now that I'm talking about it with you, Michelle, it's almost like it was this safe place that I could be. Like, I've never really connected that, but it really is like this connection of this safety that I could be and create and make things unimaginable. And I remember like having them, at our cafeteria, and they took over the whole stage and being so proud that I got to be a part of that. And so, I didn't know that was going to connect. That unlocked like a reason. I think that unlocks something of like why it's so freaking important to me. And I think it's as an art teacher, I remember, one of my students, he kind of had that similar like thing that I had when I was younger. And I remember having him help me on these murals. And making sure that everybody knew like he did that, and just him like beaming with pride of like how proud he was of himself. And so I really think it takes people that maybe like me, that aren't the smartest person in the room, that doesn't have the best grades, but we have this creativity, we have this gift God gave us, and we can use it in such a magical way. And it gives people that maybe can't do the other things really well, we can do these other things like spectacularly. So it matters so much.
Yeah, give it up for Heidi. Oh my gosh, what an inspiring, amazing conversation. We could literally sit here and keep talking with you. I just want to say that Heidi is featuring, Heidi's our first guest on the summit. So on the 7th of July, tune in. If you've enjoyed hearing Heidi, bring your paints along. We're going to be doing a demo where Heidi's going to show you how to paint the palm tree painting and talk to you more about paint parties and how you can get started. And then if you like it, which I'm sure you will, Heidi organizes this big fall event every September where loads and loads of people from around the world, I would imagine, come together and work through this process of paint parties. And Heidi's got a membership where she teaches this day in, day out to people. And so, as Heidi said earlier, there's like 3,000 people in her membership. And what I think is amazing, if you think about the ripple effect, of those 3,000 people all going out and doing their thing, and then they're impacting those people. And that's why this is so important, this conversation and inspiring other people to do this, because with every one person that you can impact, we are having that amazing ripple effect that the world needs right now to shower people with positivity, love, creativity, and to create that safe space. I think you nearly made me cry when you were saying that, because I think for a lot of artists that it is a safe space for us, isn't it, to create. No one can get us there. And to be in a room where you're bringing people together to foster that together, it gives me goosebumps. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Chills, and thank you for letting me unpack that, because that really is the first time in my life that I've connected that. And that's really why it matters so much. It's so important.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for being here. Where are you on social media, Heidi? Where can people go and follow you and find you?
So Texas Art and Soul, even though we're in Nashville now, I'm not changing the name.
It's your roots.
Go to Instagram at Texas Art and Soul _. And we're always posting fun things and fun tips about paint parties. So if you're thinking about getting into this, I highly recommend it. It is very, very profitable and a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, super. And please do join us for the summit. And if you have got questions and you're watching the replay of this, save your questions, come to the summit. And when Heidi's talk is aired, you'll be able to answer questions underneath that. We'll send it to Heidi and her team. And if there's any questions we can't answer, we'll send them over to the team and get those answered for you. So any paint party questions, bring them to the summit. You can post them underneath the talk, and I cannot wait for you to see it. I'm going to be there watching again. I'm so excited, and it's just an honor to have you here, Heidi, and I'm so in awe of everything that you've done. You're an inspiration and also such a beautiful soul. You've got such a really lovely aura, and I don't know, it's just, you're a wonderful person. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. This is really cool. I appreciate everything you've done.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, everyone who's tuned in. Like I say, if you want to join in on the summit, TYA25 in the comments. We'll send you the link to take part. We'll also put Heidi's links underneath all of this as well, so you can go and follow Heidi. If you think that paint parties might be for you, we'd love to hear from you as well. Let us know if it's something that's triggered your curiosity. Okay, take care, my friends. Keep making. Your art matters, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.